You have choice. You have always had choice. What change can we be today? What action can we take to create a future of greater possibilities? Welcome to the Choice, Change and Action podcast with your host, Simone Milasas. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Choice, Change and Action podcast. So you are with me, Simone Milasas, your host. And today I have joining me, Paul Kearney. So welcome, Paul.
Hello, Simone. How you doing? Great to be here.
I'm good. Now, are you in Ireland at the moment? Is that
I'm in
correct?
Ireland at the moment. I just flew from Italy yesterday.
Okay. And if it hasn't given it away already, you're Irish from your accent. I
Yes,
won't,
yeah,
I
not,
won't, I
not
won't ask you to
Italian.
say 33.
Yeah, 23 and
So,
a third. Yeah.
why does that always bring me such joy? Okay, so let's do a little bit of background because one of the topics that we wanted to talk about today was business, and both you and I have been lucky enough, I'm going to say, to be working with Gary Douglas, the founder of Access Consciousness, and in business. I've been working with Gary for 21 years in business, and
Wow.
the man is so different. He is so off the charts, brilliant and different than anyone I ever know, being in business. I mean, today he did something that I went, what? And I went, can I call you? And he called me and I called him and I went, okay, so can you give me a download of why you're choosing to do this? And he went, yeah. And it was giving money to this person really randomly. And he goes, I want this person to know how brilliant they are. And he said, I want them not to look at the wrongness that they've decided they are, and I want them to see that the brilliance that they are, and said a bunch of things. And I was like, okay. And then I rang this person. I went, hey, he doesn't even know Gary. And I went,
Yeah,
you
okay.
know this, and I said, this guy, Gary Douglas, that I work with. I said, he wants to give you, X amount of money because blah, blah, blah. And he goes, okay, that's weird. And he went, but actually, it's not weird because Simone, hanging out with you, he goes, I see the people that you hang out with and the way you guys be, and it's different. And he went, so I get that I went to go to weird first off, but maybe it's not because of the way you guys be in the world. And this friend of mine's always saying to me, Simone, everything you choose or so many things that you do are about, like in his words, he says, are about leaving your mark in the world. And I know for all of us that are access consciousness facilitators, it's like, what can we choose today that creates the world to be greater than it was yesterday? And that's how Gary is in business. That's how you can be in business. For myself, I know when I first met Gary, well, actually, the first class I ever went to, traveled to, was a business class in San Francisco, and I had no money, and I was so in debt. And I remember talking to my father, and he said to me, Simone, you need to go to figure out if this is actually what you want to do in life. Now, interesting enough, my father was actually ahead of the game. He was in the future. Because to me, I was going, I want to go to this class to learn about business so I can apply these tools to my current business. Whereas my father was actually smarter, and he was like, oh, I think this is what she's about to do, what she's about to step into. And I remember sitting in the front row, just like, an eager child, just listening to everything that Gary was talking about, going, oh my God, I do that. I do that. Oh my God, this is brilliant. This is brilliant. This is phenomenal, and went home and just changed so much of my business. But the one thing I'm going to say is everything that Gary was talking to wasn't anything I didn't know. It matched the energy of what I knew was possible that you could create and what you could be in business in the world. So I was really grateful. It was not like, oh, quickly, the guys in the white coats are going to come take me away because I'm insane for the way I'm looking at things. So hence I wrote the book Joy of Business. If you don't have the book Joy of Business, I highly recommend getting it. You can get it on Amazon. It's in a bunch of languages. It's in audio in my Australian tone in my voice. So Joy of Business. And Paul Kearney is actually a Joy of Business facilitator. We call them JCFs for short. Now, Paul is currently managing the castle that we have in Italy, Castle Borgoni, and I did this interview the other day, and she goes, okay, this is a burning question. How were you an owner of a castle in Italy? I know it's a bit random for an Australian to be, part owner of a castle in Italy, but it showed up and it's there. So you're managing this now. Now I want to backtrack a little bit because when we first met you, quite a few years ago, I think one of, I'm sorry, I'm going to bring this up, but one of the major companies in the world that you were working for was Coca-Cola, correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So I want to ask you because you worked in corporate, like you sort of can't get more corporate than Coke. And then you came across Access. You loved the tools, loved all of that. But what was going through your head all that time, or what was really going on when you were like, because it's so many two different worlds.
Totally, yeah. And just to speak to the first energy, it's exactly the same as you. It's such an honor to work with Gary. I'm so grateful for this podcast because I was actually reflecting last night and this morning on how much has changed in my world since I've met you, since I've met Gary, met Dane, just awesome, awesome people. Um, and it was two different worlds, and I was doing a lot of form and structure. This is the way things need to be. Business is very, very, very serious. And Gary's whole approach is business is a celebration of life. It's something that you do that's fun, that's enjoyable, and that you create greater in the world. And one of the things that I see with Gary is always so aware of the future. And like he'll be aware of giving the money to that man is going to create a greater future for everybody. And that's why it's such an honor to work with the guy. I've learned so
But
much
can I
from him.
just interrupt for 1 second? Because also he would do something like that, gift money to someone, but he's never vested in the outcome
Yeah,
ever.
completely. Yeah,
Which
that's
is
so
which is
true. Yeah.
the golden key to all of that. It's like gift, but don't be vested in the outcome.
Yeah, and it sounds easy. A lot of the things Gary does, they sound easy, but actually being able to be interesting point of view. I remember at one stage I was having an argument with Gary and we were texting each other over and back, and like basically my point of view was I was right. And it was the next so I sent him a message and I went to bed and I was like, I'm totally right. And the next morning I just got a message, 365 days of interesting point of view. And it's like I'm now 9 months into that, but it's changed so much in my life because um, there's a space that's available for all of us that is so beautiful if we choose it, and it's our choice that allows us to choose that and open up into a place of possibilities rather than problems.
So can you just give a little brief description of interesting point of view as a tool? Because there's a lot of people who've listened to this who may not have done access consciousness. So when you say interesting point of view, 365 days, what the hell does that mean?
Yeah, great points. So basically, any point of view you have, we have a lot of fixed points of view, and it brings up a certain energy in your world. So it's like, this is the corporate way to do it, is a point of view. And all you say is just repeating, interesting point of view, I have this point of view, interesting point of view, I have this point of view, interesting point of view, I have this point of view. And usually once you say it 6 or 8 times, the actual energy starts to lighten. And one of the things in access consciousness is what's light is true and what's heavy is a lie. And I bought a lot of lies from the corporate sector. This is the way things have to be done. And it's like there's always infinite possibilities. And when you follow the infinite possibilities, guess what? More infinite possibilities show up.
And it's interesting when you said that your point of view to begin with was business is serious. And I don't know if it's your Irish accent or whatever, but it's taking me to when I lived in London. And Monday to Friday, when I lived in London, you'd go to work and no one would talk on the tube station. It was just like this, like head down, don't eyeball anyone. But Friday afternoon, it was like, oh man, you'd go to the closest bar and you would get so drunk, and it's like you would get drunk all weekend, but then Monday, it was, back to being serious and boring. And I remember at one stage, I was going to work and I was so excited about going to work, and it was a Monday. And someone said to me, why are you excited about going to work? And I'm like, well, what are we going to create this week? And I was like, it's Monday. It's like, let's go. And they're like, God, Simone, you are so odd and you are so different. And what I want to say to all of you is if you wake up in the morning and you actually have this joy about your business and going to work, etc., please keep embracing that, because that's you. And it's like, my point of view is if you don't enjoy what you're doing, why the hell are you doing it? Like, find something that you actually enjoy. So let's go to, I still want to like sort of crack this nut of you being corporate and then coming along to Access, did you have the point of view that you were going to come in and change the way we were, or what was your?
My point of view, so it's a funny story. So my point of view was you guys were totally crazy, like totally crazy.
Well, that's
And
actually an awareness.
yeah, yeah, kind of with a lot of judgment. And so I came in 2014. I came working with Access for a couple of months, and it was like I quit. I'm like I always say I'm the worst accessory person ever. But and it was so funny because it was like it was I'd never seen anybody work like I worked with a lot of organizations, but I'd never seen anybody work with the speed. But the big thing was my point of view was you had to have form, you had to have structure, you had to have everything, project plans written down, blah, blah, blah. And actually you don't. You just follow the energy, you trust what you know. And one of the like Gary often sends me different messages about different things, but one of the things he sent me was trust or learn from me to trust you. And it's like this whole journey for me has been about me trusting me. And it's like the more that I can trust me and trust what I know, everything starts to open up. Um, yeah, and
Can you say that
that's
one more
been
time?
yeah, so Gary messaged me, and it was learn from me to trust you, because Gary will always trust himself. And it's like
Yeah.
he'll trust the energy, he'll trust even in the most bizarre of situations or whatever is happening, he'll always trust himself. And it's like I'm learning that more so now to trust what I know. And when I know something, it's like, okay, hey, I'm aware of an energy here. Compared before, I would have just ignored it and said, okay, we do the corporate thing. Compared now, it's like, okay, let's follow this and see what it creates. It's following the whispers of the universe.
Yeah, and that. Thank you so much for that, Paul. That's such a key piece too. And I mean, as example, because it just occurred like a couple of hours ago, with Gary saying, "Hey, send this person some money," and he hasn't met this person. It's my initial reaction is to go, "No, that's crazy. It's insane. How am I going to explain that to this person?" And then I just went, "Okay,
Yeah.
I'll do it," because I do trust, like you said, everything he chooses so it creates a greater possibility. He doesn't choose it because it's right, or he doesn't choose it because he's decided someone is less than or there's a lack anywhere. He chooses to create a greater possibility. So, what if you all started choosing to create a greater possibility, no matter what that looks like and no matter how it shows up? Like, don't look for someone to align and agree with you, or look for a reference point. Is anyone else doing this before I choose it? Gary never, ever, ever looks if anyone else is choosing something before he chooses it. He just chooses, which is
Yeah.
brilliant.
Uh,
Go
So,
ahead.
and just on that one, it's like choosing the castle in Italy was a completely illogical in one way, and it was like Gary saw the beauty, he saw the future, and it's like Italy is full of people who are bankrupted trying to restore castles. It's like I can see how easily it happens because it's a large financing project, but it creates so much more. Like a simple example, but yesterday one of the cleaning ladies came to me and she was like, I see the people in Costa Rica, I want to contribute to them. And it was like we sent a donation from her to
Oh,
to the people in Costa Rica. But like, what are we creating around the world where there's that level of kindness that a cleaning lady who's cleaning hotel rooms is actually contributing to people in Costa Rica that she sees as her co-workers as such? Like they're
wow.
part of a bigger group
Yeah.
of people, like, yeah.
Okay, so if you're interested in that as well, we'll have the links in the show notes if you want to download those. But if you go to actionsforfuture.com, or actions for futures with an S,
Futures, yeah.com,
actions
yeah.
for yeah, action for futures with an s.com/, call. Okay, we keep it simple, THECALL, the call, and you can actually buy that call if you want. I think it's like €200, or $200 or something minimum amount, and it's a call that Gary Douglas, Dane here, Brendan Watt, and myself did. And what we spoke about was the call was called, like, when someone calls, it's like, what are you going to choose? Possibility, necessity, or choice? And there was we're building a resort in a place called Serapeque in Costa Rica, and there was these massive floods the other day, and over 300 people lost their homes, lost everything. Now, I am living in Australia at the moment, and there's not a drop that you hear about that in the news. And of course, we were there. It's our staff, like it was people that are working on building the property that we have there. And so we went, okay, what can we do? And we started a GoFundMe. People started donating to that, and then we did this call. So if you want, you can grab this call. We'll put also the PayPal link if you just want to donate $10, whatever you want. And at the moment, like as we're currently doing this podcast, I saw some photos this morning, and it was so cool. These people getting like brand new clothes. It's like a kitchen, or we supplied them with food, etc. So, and the thing that was so amazing is David, one of the guys that we work with, showed them a map of the world and pretty much where everyone from the world was donating from, and had this generosity of spirit. And they were astounded, because they were like, maybe US because they're Costa Rica, but it was like, wow, people from all over the world are contributing to us. And to me, that's the planet that I want to live in. That's why I
Yeah.
do these podcasts. That's why I wake up every day and love so much what I choose to do. It's like facilitating classes, working, with Access Consciousness. That's why I've been doing this for 21 years, and I am so grateful to all of the people who have, who are contributing and have that level of contribution to create, an entirely different planet. So that to me is like, thank you for telling me that. That's really cool that the cleaning lady at the castle wanted to contribute to people in Costa Rica. That's the way it should be.
Yeah, completely. Yeah, and she could perceive that. Like she could say, look, these people are having a tough time. I want to contribute. How can I help? And it's like it's amazing what we're creating all around the world, because even like access consciousness has grown so rapidly. Like it's in 177 countries, and it's like usually that takes companies like 100 years, maybe 150 years. And we've done it in 20, and it's like it's
Yeah,
amazing the change we're creating. Yeah.
it is. So let's go to, because don't get me wrong, Paul and I are very, very grateful to work with Gary, and sometimes it's really confronting. When you said that you were like, you were like yelling at him, or he was yelling at you or something like that, because Gary doesn't stand down. It's like I've had some
Oh,
really hairy moments with him. But the one thing that I'll know is when he's addressing something that you're choosing or you've chosen, he's not trying to be a dictator. He's trying to get you to come to the awareness of what you could, and he will always give you choice. Like you can, I've noticed all these major moments working with Gary where I could either choose the same as what I was choosing, I could also choose less than, or I could be really uncomfortable and choose more. And he doesn't make it right or wrong with what you choose, but he'll just open the platform up to like, here you go, here's another possibility, you get to choose, which I think is one of the greatest gifts in the world. So I know you've got a few pointers here on different things that you have learned with working with Gary. So what do you want to start with first?
yeah. One of the things that I've learned with Gary is what are you aware of that I'm not seeing here? Because it's initially I come up with what I thought was a brilliant idea, and then Gary's like, maybe that's not such a brilliant idea. And then I'd spent like a month or two trying to convince him. And like last year, I was looking to get umbrellas at the castle because it was sunny, and like it seemed like such an obvious choice, and Gary was dead set against it. And this ran on for a couple of months, and like I was trying to convince him. And then at the end, I was like, okay, Gary, what are you aware of? And he said, look, my target with everything is to create more consciousness on the planet. So when somebody sits on a seat, I want them to be aware of where the sun is going to be in an hour's time, in 2 hours' time, in 3 hours' time, so that they're actually becoming more aware of what their choices create. And for me, that was so cool. I was like, wow, this guy is so clued in. He's in America. He's aware of where somebody is sitting on a seat in a castle in Italy. It blows my mind in a lot of ways, but it's all for more awareness.
Yep, more consciousness on the planet. I love that. Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, so for 2 months you were trying to prove your point of view right. Whereas
Totally.
what you could have done in that first conversation is gone, Gary, what are you aware of? Like today when he pinged me that, and I went, can I call you in 5 minutes? And he's like, yes. And I'm like, can you give me more information? Like,
Yeah.
I wasn't saying no, don't do it, or I don't agree or anything. I was like, where are you coming from with this? Like, and then when he downloaded me with it, I went, oh, okay, cool.
Mm.
So what's number two that you've learned from Gary? But amongst the billion tools that you've learned, yeah.
Yeah, number two is it's a simple example, but it's like so at the front of the castle, so the castle is 11th century castle. It's absolutely beautiful. And during the summer, the town actually put on free concerts. So everybody comes, maybe 150 people. It's a lovely experience. And Gary said to me, give free champagne to everybody. And I was like, okay, cool. And then the first concert came along, and we were super busy, and I was like, oh, I don't have time to send staff down to do this. So I was like, okay, I chose not to do it, not my brightest choice. So then I was in a
I'm
class
just
with
laughing because I can so see the not your brightest choice is like, what happened next?
yeah. So, so then maybe a week later, even less, I'm in a class with Gary, and next thing Gary is like, and I told Paul to do this thing and he didn't do it. Da 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 da. And it was like he was so aware of what the choice created. So then 2 weeks later, the next concert came up, and we put on free champagne. I went down, met all the people, and it was a beautiful experience. Then they asked me to come up on stage to make a speech, and it was like it melted a lot of the barriers that were there between the castle, like new people in the castle as such, and the townspeople. And now our relationship is very good. But it was like he was so aware of what it was going to create, and my choice not to do it wasn't the brightest moment. And since that, like now we're a year and a half later, every concert, more and more people are coming. They all know the castle, and then they come to visit the castle. It's a simple example of something small, but it created so much more because everybody started to grow from it.
And I would like to point out here that if you look at even those two examples that you came up with, it's not about money. Like
Yeah.
Gary doesn't go, oh, how much money are we spending on the champagne, or how much money are we saving on not buying umbrellas? It's nothing to do with money. It's never to do with money with him at all. He will use money to change people's realities and change their whole entire universe. And sometimes it's with $10, sometimes it's with $10,000. It's like it's different, but it's never about the money. He will choose based on what is actually going to create a greater possibility here.
Yeah, and
And that's what I know you've learned, and I know I've learned. And I do 21 years, I still have this sense that I'm like a little baby crawling along going,
yeah,
I'm I'm almost getting it, and as you become more aware and this more like, yay, and it's like, and then Gary just goes vroom, and soars even more, and you're like, whoa, trying to catch up with this huge, massive, magnificent dragon like going across the whole entire universe, and it's like, how did we get so lucky?
yeah, totally. And to speak to that, because like I worked with like a lot of CEOs, a lot of managing directors who were brilliant, but they were doing this reality. Gary doesn't do this reality. He's creating beyond this reality, and he's so aware of the future and what's actually possible, and he's always choosing that. Every 10 seconds he's going for more, going for more, going for more. And everybody he works with, like he in one way he pushes us hard, but like if you need a kick in the ass, he gives you a kick in the ass. If you need a slap in the back, he needs a slap in the back. Like, he knows what's required at any stage, and it's such a skill. It's such a skill. Yeah.
And on saying that too, he'll never. It's turning into a podcast about Gary, but it's like the tools that we've learned from working with him. He will never just throw away an acknowledgement either.
No.
Like if he actually acknowledges you, he's acknowledging you. It's not something he just throws away. He doesn't do it to make you feel good. It's like, that's up to you. It's
Yeah.
like to acknowledge you as well. Okay, so I know that you had a few more there. What's another one that you've learned from him?
Another one, which is kind of a funny example. So when I came to the castle first, I was like, okay, we need to recruit new staff. And so we use LinkedIn and we advertise and da. And like after a couple of months, that wasn't really working. So what I started to do was just ask the castle. So the castle is such a powerful energy. It's been there for 2000 years. And it's like, so I remember one Monday morning, I was pretty desperate at this stage because we had a big conference coming on Friday, and a couple of staff members had to leave for different reasons. So I was down to one waiter, and like I had 80 people arriving on a Friday. So I was like, Castle, could I please have two waiters? And just let it go.
On my knees begging. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and then I went into the guys and they were like, "Oh, Paul, look, we really need waiters. We really need waiters. What are we going to do?" And I said, "Don't worry, I've asked the castle." So and they looked at me as if to say, "Okay, Paul
He's
has
losing it.
no, it's like he's totally lost it. He's gone crazy. Like I work with quite pragmatic people, so like they're like he's totally crazy." So then the next that afternoon, actually, within 6 hours, this guy rang and he was like, "Oh, I've seen your website. I just love the energy of the castle. I'd really like to work there." And we were like, "Okay, what do you do?" And he was like, "I'm a waiter." I said, "Okay." So he came 10 o'clock the next morning for an interview. He was brilliant, and he still works with a super guy. And then I was like, "Would you know anybody else?" And he's like, "Oh, my wife." And it's like, so the two of them came in, and they just like when people arrive into the castle, it's such a caring, powerful energy, but you know within 5 minutes who's a fit and who's not. And he just fitted in, his wife fitted in, and like they've worked with us for nearly a year at this stage. But it was like the corporate point of view would be, okay, we need to do LinkedIn, we need to advertise, we need to do all these things. And a lot of the time, what if it's not? What if you just ask the universe for ease?
Well, and also the fact that you need to interview a certain amount of people to get the ones that you're choosing.
Yeah.
Like I'm actually just starting a business at the moment as well, and it's with some guys, and I'm doing the finance. They're doing the construction side of it, like flipping houses, right? And I could see one of them, the way he's talking about it, it's just like we've got to do this, and 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 that's the way he works, and that's fine. But I just said today, you know what? Things might show up a lot quicker than you think because that's sort of the way it works with me. And it's like, but it's true. It's like you ask something to show up and it shows up. So, what Paul is talking about is asking the castle. I would use that tool so much. It's like ask the business. Like, say, one of the things I do a lot is classes. So you ask the class to pull in the energy of the people as well. It's like ask your business what it requires next. Ask your business to contribute to you and also what you can contribute to it. But if you ask something like the castle, it's like, okay, show me what next, Show me where the people are that would be nurturing to work here, that would be fun to work here, that would be a contribution. So, and the way I look at this too is what have you been doing with your business that you think if you do it again will work? And yet, Einstein's definition of insanity is doing the same thing and expecting a different result. So, what if you were willing to like destroy and uncreate everything that you've ever thought you knew about business? And everything at that is times a godzillion, right and wrong, good and bad, POC and POD, all nine shorts, boys and beyonds. And that is the Access Consciousness Clearing Statement. And basically, what you're doing is just like destroying and uncreating everything you've been taught, every reference point from every person, from school, college, family, colleagues, etc. And what I would like you to have is this moment where you destroy and uncreate your relationship with your business, with everything, right and wrong, good and bad, POC and POD, all nine shorts, boys and beyonds. Now look at the energy of it and ask, what do you know? Like, and who and what can you ask for contribution? Like, like Paul asking the castle. Even if the rest of the staff think he's gone Looney Tunes, oh well, it worked. It's like, what if you actually changed it up and did something different? Would your business show up to be different?
Yeah.
So what's another? What? Yeah, go ahead.
Well, and we had a funny one the other day where it was like one of the one of the leaders of the groups was saying, "Okay, I need two extra staff members," and she was like saying to me, "Okay, what do I do?" And I was like, "Well, you know my point of view on it." And she's like, "Oh yeah, I forgot to ask the castle." So it's like it becomes like consciousness is contagious. It becomes contagious, and it's like she was like, "Okay, I'll ask the castle." Then within like the castle is pretty awesome. Sometimes within 2 hours we have somebody. So it's
Right.
yeah, it can show up.
I
One
love
of the
that.
yeah, one of the big ones
I'm
for
sorry, I'm
me.
writing that down. And that's the way this works. Consciousness is contagious. That's what we're going to call this podcast.
Oh,
I
awesome,
love
yeah.
it. Because
um,
but if you look at this, Paul, it's like if you look at 2014, you said you met us. And
Yeah,
if you had heard us saying ask the castle, you would just be like, no way. Like
yeah,
you can't do that. That's not a reality. But it is.
yeah.
So yeah. Anyway, go on. What was next?
And in 2014, if you told me like 7 years later in your life you'll be working with these guys, having more fun than you've ever had, creating more projects than you ever thought possible, I would have been like, "Are you crazy? No way am I choosing that." And it was like when you when you let go of your points of view, anything can change. And that's one of the big things I'd say for people is it's just look at what you desire to create in the world and follow it. Because that's the big thing I see with you, Gary, with Dane, with Brendan. You follow the energy of what you want to create in the world, and whatever comes up, you just manage it. It's like, okay, this comes up, we need to change it. Let's change it. It's like it's that level of trust of the universe. It's incredible.
Yeah. And I get that trust of the universe. And just to add to that point as well, like before I found Access Consciousness or it found me, one of the businesses I had was called Good Vibes for You. And my whole like concept of creating this business, Good Vibes for You, was to change the way people looked at the world and they looked at themselves. Like I wrote this whole thing on vulnerability because I was like, why can't people like meet each other and be like, hi? And have this level of vulnerability with these barriers down and no limitations. And also, what would it take for people to look at the earth like that? And I mean, I was saying to someone today, because they were getting all, upset about what's happening in the world at the moment. And I was like, look, this is going to go on for quite some time, like the insanity and the crazy. What I've been doing as well is look at my relationship with the earth. No one can take that away. No one. And it's like, find a piece of land. Even if the other day I was listening to music and watching nature shows in the background, like while I was doing stuff, because it was just like nature shows, music is such a contribution because nature is such a contribution and it's so willing to give to you. And if you receive from it, what else can show up? So in the world of crazy, it's like, don't give up on what you know. Like for me, creating that business, Good Vibes for You, yes, I was following the energy and I had this whole theory of how we could be. But literally, I was like, I just want to shake people by the shoulders and say, don't you get it? Don't you get it? There's something else available. And when I met Gary Douglas and Dane here, creator and co creator of Access Consciousness, I was like, holy shit, these guys are talking about everything that I know is possible. But no one else was talking about it. So if where you are heading in life, nobody else is choosing it, don't back down. It's like, as Paul has mentioned a couple of times here on this podcast, trust you. No matter if anyone else is choosing it. Like, don't trust me, don't trust Paul, trust you. Like, what do you know? What do you want to choose? And go with that. That is what is going to create your life to be phenomenal and create more here on planet Earth.
Yeah, totally. All of that, yeah, all of
Mm.
that, yeah. And
Yeah.
it's so true because everything is available for us. It's just a matter of choosing and saying, okay, yeah, what would I like to choose? And the other one is realize that you have to take actions. It's like this when I met you guys first, I thought, oh, these guys can't actually actualize it. And next thing I was like, wow, these guys can actualize it faster than
Faster
anybody
than
else.
anything else. I know.
Yeah, yeah.
I
And I was
know.
like, this is miraculous. It's like it's boom, 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 boom. And it's
Yeah.
like it's the speed is incredible. Like the speed that we do the projects. And it's like when we were setting up the European company, like I was told, oh, we'll need hundreds of people to do this, blah, 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 blah. And it was like 5 or 6 people just doing their thing and it all fell into place. And it's like
Yeah.
it's been willing to trust what you know. It's so important. Yeah.
Well, what's some of the? I mean, I love our accountants everywhere, but I love the accountant in Ireland too. And one of a few comments that he's made about our business. Can you remember any of them? Because I mean,
Oh,
we're
yes,
really.
so many, but his point of view was always like this isn't possible. And I was at a business conference last year, and this guy was saying, "Oh my God," he said, "Garrett was actually using you."
If you're enjoying this podcast and have a question or topic you'd like me to address, please leave a review wherever you are listening. The best way for me to know what it is you want to hear about is to send in your questions, and we actually read all the reviews that come in. So let us know which episodes you loved and what you want to hear about next, right there in the podcast reviews. And thank you. Truly, truly grateful.